Welcome back to PennMicro. This is a first exercise in our course, and it's going to be actually something we're going to build on and actually have a myriad of exercises. So here's what you need. 2 writing instruments, and ideally the writing instruments are marking pens that you'll be able to find readily available in your OR. You want to get a marking pen that's long. Sometimes hospitals have these short ones. That's not going to be particularly useful. So get a long marking pen. If you don't have that, you can use a pencil, number 2 pencil, cheap, readily available, as well as a ruler. And what we're going to do with this piece of paper is to draw a grid of dots. The purpose of this exercise is to be able to coordinate your intrinsics and your muscle memory and your hand-eye coordination to be able to repeatedly hit the same dot in 3-dimensional space. But we're going to do it in a way that allows you to both grip your instruments properly and make sure that your hands don't move. It's just your fingers that are doing the movement. Microsurgery is all about IP and PIP joint movement and intrinsic movement. There should be no movement of the wrist, certainly no movement of the elbow or the shoulder. And some of the critical things about microsurgery is that movements of the wrist, elbow, shoulder get magnified under microsurgery conditions. So the way to minimize tremor and increase stability and reliability in microsurgery is to make sure really you're just using a stabilized wrist and IP joint and PIP joint movements. All right, so the first step is to create a grid. And so for that, what we're going to do is to make a grid of dots and pick the center of a landscape 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and make 7 dots somewhere in the middle of that sheet of paper. It doesn't have to be exact. And these dots are separated by a centimeter each. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Go over approximately 2 centimeters and make another series of 7 dots. That's 2 centimeters. And again, 7 more dots, roughly in a straight line. Doesn't have to be exact. 3, 7. All right. Now, what we're going to do is get my 2 writing instruments. So in this case, my 2 marking pens. Take the caps off. And I'm going to put my hands down on the piece of paper so that my hypothenar eminences are essentially resting on the paper. This helps to stabilize the paper. Now, where I want to basically do is hold my instruments, my pens, in a natural, comfortable position as if these were microsurgery instruments, and extend as much as possible. When I extend, I want to see that right now, the tips of my instruments don't touch. So what I do is bring my hands in a little bit closer so that when I'm fully extended, the tips are touching. Okay? That tells me that I'm the appropriate distance centered on these dots. The next step is about a hand-eye coordination exercise, essentially, is to make sure that I can hit these dots reliably. So with my left hand, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the key thing is I want the pen to just barely touch the paper. It does need to touch the paper, but just barely. And I want 100% accuracy. So I want to make sure that I'm touching the dot, not just in the column closest to me, but also the column furthest away from me. And as I'm doing this, if you take a look at my hand motion, I'm not using my wrist. My wrist is essentially firmly planted. My hypothenars firmly planted on the piece of paper. So the only thing that's moving is going to be my intrinsics. Now, the same thing with the non-dominant hand. It's much, much harder with the non-dominant hand, but you want to be able to do the exact same thing and get in the habit of being able to reach, to really reach. When I was learning how to play the guitar, some chord changes and some chord positions required an extraordinary amount of finger reach that I didn't have when I was first learning it. It's the same thing here. You're going to be able to stretch your hands and stretch your fingers to be able to reach these. So that's step 1.